It's an EV podcast special today as we talk about one car and one car only. It's the new Porsche Taycan. Well, good morning, good afternoon or good evening. Wherever you're listening around the world, welcome to EV News Daily. Wednesday, 4th of September edition today. My name is Martyn Lee. I go through every story that I can find and bring you the essential EV news to save you time because you're too busy to do that every single day surfing the blogs. But today there is only one car that we're talking about. Tomorrow's show will have a bumper edition of news, everything we would have talked about today. Today we're talking about the Porsche Taycan reveal. And I'm going to go for calling it the Porsche Taycan. Tie as in necktie, Can, like car but with a N on the end. Some people called it the Taycan today, and I'm going to go with how I heard it on the reveal video. This is how Porsche executives, okay, they might be German and they might have an accent, they describe it as the Taycan anyway. I'm being picky, but I'd like to get this right. In the words of the company boss, Oliver Blume, the Porsche Taycan is the start of a new era for the company. We're going to get into a bumper set of video reviews, of text reviews, of articles today. We're going to bring you all the information on this groundbreaking new car. And we'll start off with some specs. So you know that it's a Porsche, it's a four-door, it's maybe a five-seater, 4 to 5-seater. Not a lot of room in the back, but adults can get in there. 2 motors, front and rear axle. Battery size, 93.4 kilowatt hours. That's big. 93.4 kilowatt hours battery. I couldn't find for the life of me if that is gross or whether that is usable, but I'll carry on researching. Peak charging rates, we've talked about 350 kilowatts chargers being installed, but it can't go that fast, but it will charge at 270, and yes, that does best the Tesla Model 3, which peaks at 250. And as for regen braking, almost as much. When you hit regen braking really hard, it will put 265 kilowatts of power back into the battery. That is some regen system. Total horsepower, well, in peak boost mode, 761 horsepower, but other models are less. 2-speed transmission, a seamless 2-speed transmission system, all-wheel drive, 161 miles an hour top speed if you're taking it to the track or the German Autobahn. 0 to 62 in 2.8 seconds. Range up to 257 miles if you're not doing any of those 0 to 60 launches and you're driving it conservatively. Time to get to 80% battery capacity on a quick charger, 22.5 minutes. It's got big boot, 447 litres of space. That is actually the front and the frunk. That's both boots, if you like. And WLTP range, 280 miles is the European WLTP range, which is always a bit optimistic, has put on this car. So, top speed of the 2 models revealed today, the Taycan Turbo and the Taycan Turbo S. The Taycan Turbo, 0 to 60 in 3 seconds. The Taycan Turbo S, 2.6 seconds, which is quicker than some of the videos said. Although some of the videos were doing 0 to 62 time, which was 2.8 seconds. This is 0 to 60 time on the official press release, which is a little bit quicker, 2.6 seconds. Quarter mile done in 11.1 seconds for the Taycan Turbo and 10.8 seconds for the Turbo S. And charge time to get to 80% state of charge on both cars is exactly the same. It's either going to be 10.5 hours on your home charger or 22.5 minutes on a ultra-fast rapid charger. The Porsche Taycan is finally here in turbo trim. Yes, that will be addressed later on the podcast. With the base model. The Turbo is the base model, and it starts at $150,900 in the US. If you go for the more powerful Turbo S, takes the price to $185,000. You heard me correctly, $185,000. The online configurator for the Taycan Turbo and Turbo S are online now. If you want to go and have a little play, you can configure, you can fully load, and if you do, you'll get a price of, and I hope you're sitting down, $241,000. if you tick all of the options. According to Motor One, let's kick off with the Porsche presentation. The whole thing was over 40 minutes long, but don't worry, we've whittled it down for you. Without all of the corporate guff, all of the fancy buzzwords, and actually, Porsche are going to have a difficult conversation with their production company after this. The terrible sound for whatever production company they hired in to do their presentation. Long periods of silence, of a glitchy mic on Mark Webber. It was amateur hour. It was a terrible presentation for one of the world's, well, for VW Group, but anyway, for one of the world's best brands, Porsche. They will be steaming. Anyway, I digress. Here is a 5-minute supercut of what you need to know.
We're very happy to have you here for the presentation of the Porsche Taycan. With the Taycan, it's the first full electric sports car we present.
In this car, we see the DNA of the 918 Spider super sports car and the 919 Hybrid, our 3-time winner of Le Mans. Let's have a look at the key facts. Top track speeds up to 260 kilometers per hour, consistently over a long period. 0 to 100 in just 2.8 seconds. 0 to 200, amazing 9.8 seconds. And not only once or twice, but many times in a row with no loss of power. The overboost function in launch control provides a peak power of up to 560 kilowatts, which equals 761 PS in the combustion world. And the maximum torque of the Taycan is up to incredible 1,050 Newton meters. It has proven as much on the Nürburgring Nordschleife, where it achieved a sensational lap time of 7 minutes 42 seconds only. But there's much more it can do, namely long distances. WLTP, the Taycan achieves a range of up to 450 kilometers. It can charge with a peak power of 270 kilowatts. This means under ideal circumstances, it takes just 5 minutes to be ready for another 100 kilometers of range. The Taycan is the first series production car based on an 800-volt system. In addition to that, we have developed a 2-speed transmission for the rear axle. The first gear ensures maximum takeoff performance, while the second offers high speeds and accelerations reserves, as you expected in a sports car. We have succeeded in an outstanding drag coefficient of only 0.22 without any compromising on the design, which you will see later. Systems like electric active roll stabilization, 3-chamber air suspension, and rear axle steering are available. The Taycan also has best-in-class regenerative power, up to 265 kilowatts, only by using one pedal, the brake pedal.
The most important factor in the beginning, the proportions. And the Taycan definitely redefines that in the segment. Proportions that fit Porsche with a sporting width-to-height ratio. The unique layout of the batteries in the chassis makes this form possible. As a result, the rear passenger sit even lower than expected, and the driver position is very similar to that in the 911. But now let us have a look at the front. We no longer need more space for combustion engine. Therefore, we could lower the bonnet. Combined with the extremely pronounced front fenders, we can emphasize the topography of the front end, which is typical for Porsche. Characteristic on the front are the new headlights with their progressive and very slim graphic. The headlight shape has a floating optic and combines itself with a functional air curtain. This optimizes the aerodynamics and increases its range. Two further important features in side view are the fast looping roofline and the side window graphic, which is inspired by the 911. In the interior, the challenge to connect heritage and future of the brand was even greater. The driver display, with its new freestanding curved design, emphasized the form and ensures everything of importance is in a view. The clean and minimalistic design of the dash panel is supported by a seamlessly integrated center display, an optional front passenger display, and a new innovative air vents. The sloping center console combined with the modern sports seats emphasize the feeling of a low and very sporty sitting position. The material and color concept make it possible to tailor individual features from traditional through modern. Classic leather is available as well as a sustainable tan leather, and for a first time in a Porsche, we offer completely leather-free trim.
It is different from anything else we have created in more than 70 years of Porsche sports car. 100% electric, 100% Porsche.
Let's start as well with another intro to the car. This time Clint Simone. Now Clint is one of the journalists who makes videos for Motor1.com. I know Clint actually. He's a top guy. I chat to him on Slack about cars, and so I thought I'd bring you Clint's video. One of the best ones that I found online today. This is what he had to say in his.
Let's start from the top. This is the Taycan. And like I said, it's Porsche's first venture into all-electric vehicles. And today they're debuting two variants of the car, the Turbo and the Turbo S. Yes, you heard me correctly. This is a car that has no gas engine, no engine components like that, and certainly no turbochargers, and yes, they're calling it the Turbo and the Turbo S. Argue amongst yourselves. But I have to say, at least it's consistent with the rest of the Porsche brand, right? I mean, you have Panamera Turbo, 911 Turbo. This makes sense, even though it's an EV. But interesting naming scheme aside, the Taycan puts down insane power figures, so let's talk about those. Here are the most important specs. Both the Turbo and the Turbo S trims use a 93 kilowatt-hour battery pack, but the cars have slightly different projected range figures. Using European range standards, the Taycan Turbo can achieve up to 280 miles, while the more powerful S model is quoted up to 256 miles. As for charging, both cars use an 800-volt electrical architecture that allows a maximum charge rate of 270 kilowatts. What does that mean? Well, that's fast enough to take the battery from 5 to 80% in just 22 and a half minutes. Speaking of power, holy hell is there a lot of it. Both the Turbo and Turbo S variants make 616 horsepower, but engage the maximum boost launch control feature, and the Turbo jumps to 671 horsepower, while the S hits an even crazier 751 horsepower. Now the fun part, 0 to 60 in 3 seconds for the Turbo and 2.6 seconds for the Turbo S. Now Porsche claims that the Taycan is really the first EV on the market that can do acceleration runs over and over and over again without overheating. So now that we have all those numbers out of the way, let's actually talk about how the Taycan looks. And it looks really good. Clean and simple Porsche design all over this thing. There's a couple cues up front that I love. We have these headlights, which of course we've seen in prototype, but no camo hiding anything. And then you have these ducts as well, which bring in air, some nice carbon fiber detailing down below. And overall, like I said, it's just clean and simple, makes sense for an EV. Now follow me along the side of the car. I also want to talk about these wheels. These look dead on to the ones we saw with that Mission E concept car that I referenced earlier. And they look sweet. You have white around the rim with black detail in the middle. This is where I'm getting most of my 911 cues. You have this sweeping roofline, and especially from the rear three-quarter, it's very reminiscent of the 911, but overall the proportions are most similar to the Panamera. And you also have these door handles, which is similar to that of the 992 911. And come around to the back, the signature LED taillight, which stretches along almost the entire rear portion of the car. Speaking of the proportions, it's very wide, it's very low to the ground. Now, inside the Taycan, things take quite a departure from Porsches that we're used to seeing. Now, we sometimes criticize the Panamera, the Cayenne, and the Macan for having just way too many buttons in the center stack. Here, pretty much the opposite thing going on. They've ditched those long rows of buttons in place of screens. Screens pretty much everywhere. One display in front of the passenger, a huge digital display in front of the driver, and then a few in the middle as well. Now, we haven't had a chance to play around with these too much, but this is definitely previewing some of the future products for Porsche. All right, let's talk money. The Taycan Turbo is going to start at launch at $157,310. And oh boy, the Turbo S model is $187,610 at launch. Both cars are expected to go on sale before the end of the year in December.
Okay, right, that is a good intro to the car. So we've heard Porsche, we've heard Clint, now let's hear from The Verge. Now The Verge say that considering the important specs, the top-end version, the Turbo S, with its 93 kilowatt-hour battery pack and its 280 miles of range, is 40 more miles than a base Model S. The Taycan's regen braking feeds more energy back into the battery than anyone else, which is impressive. No mention of Dieselgate at all during the 40-minute presentation. Well, Porsche first unveiled the prototype of the Taycan, when it was called Mission E, a far better name, in 2015. And that was only a few short days before Dieselgate scandal broke. Since then, VW, the parent company, has made a shift into EVs, and the Taycan is the first major push into the luxury market. Now, let's talk about some special things on the car. A very special use of the spoiler, which I hadn't read about in any of the previews or leaked information. Here's Top Gear.
We get to the spoiler. You may not even notice that it has a spoiler. That's because it's sitting here in its showroom mode, which is flush with the bodywork, but it has two other positions. The first is for normal and range modes, where it lifts just slightly because that's its most aerodynamic position, and then in Sport and Sport Plus it lifts even further to give you that extra downforce you need when you're driving in a sporty manner. It also acts as an air brake as well, so when you stomp on the brakes it will stand right up and keep you glued to the road.
And talking about stopping power, Motor One is talking about the brakes. The Taycan's brakes are unlike anything ever fitted to an electric car, even a Porsche. They could, and this is not an exaggeration, the Porsche say the brakes could last for 30 years because the transmission is so good at doing regen. 90% of all braking events will be done. The front transmission, the front motor, will recover up to 221 pound-feet of recuperative torque. The rear gearbox is about twice the power for regen. The physical brakes, which you can get in tungsten carbide surface coated steel brakes or even the carbon brakes, are overkill. Up front, a 10-piston monoblock caliper clamping down on 16-inch rotors, or brake discs as I would call them in this country. So much stopping power for the track, but day to day you'll just be using one pedal driving. Now, AutoGefühl had a look at some of the app technology that new owners will get on their smartphones.
You also get this app for your phone. At the moment it says Turbo S, but that's not true. It's a prototype model here, and it's also in German at the moment, but I just want to show you can set the timer, for example, for the preheating. Then you see the battery status here in this app, and can also plan some trips and consumption data and so on, tire pressure, so a lot of interesting things to see there. And talking about all the charging data and so on, this one here, the right side now for the DC charging. So 11 kilowatt AC charging would be the top one, and then DC charging has a peak of 270 kilowatt. That's of course pretty massive. For this 93 kilowatt hour battery, that's size-wise also comparable to the biggest ones you can get in Tesla.
Brilliant stuff. What about the platform which could well be used for other VW Group cars like the Audi e-tron GT? Well, the Taycan arrives on a brand new platform known as the J1 platform, and it's going to be built in their facilities at Porsche's Zuffenhausen home in Stuttgart. The battery uses pouch cells, if you're interested, lithium-ion pouch cells. There's a small well on the floor of the car for rear passengers to put their feet. So the battery isn't a flat battery pack like a skateboard design. They've fitted the cells wherever they could to make sure that the passengers are sitting very low to the floor, unlike most EVs. Suspension components of the Panamera have been used, the four-wheel steering system as well. At low speeds, the rear axle turns in the opposite direction to the front for agility, and at high speed they turn together for stability. 3-chamber air suspension with Porsche Active Suspension Management is included, enabling a softer setup for cruising and a harder one for the track, and a lift function to get over speed bumps and when you need a little bit of additional ride height. Now, the YouTube channel from Edmunds had this to say about the clever gearbox technology with 2 gears.
There's a 2-speed transmission, which there isn't another electric car that does that right now. What that allows is a really quick 0 to 60 time of 2.6 seconds in the case of the Turbo S, but also a top speed of 162 miles an hour. And also really good efficiency on the highway because you can be in more of a cruising gear. And in fact, if you put this vehicle in its range mode, which is its eco mode, it actually drives with the rear in second gear all the time. Now you may think, wait a minute, the two ends are in different gears? Well, remember, this is an electric car. There's no drive shaft between the front and the rear. They can do anything they want, and it won't matter.
That is interesting about cruising speed. A bit like the Teslas, I suppose, with their two motors. As for the technicals, Autocar say that although the Taycan's battery pack of 90 plus kilowatt hours, 93 kilowatt hours, pushes the car's weight over 2.2 tons, it is a porker. The Taycan has the lowest centre of gravity of any Porsche on sale today, a bit like the 918 Spider's. Weight distribution, 49-51, that's about as brilliant as it gets for a sports car. Throttle response is 5 times quicker than any combustion car they've made. Traction control can operate 10 times faster. Torque vectoring, front and rear, 5 times faster than any Porsche they've made. Electronic limited slip diff can respond to wheel slip 50 times faster than any kind of mechanical setup because it's an EV. EVs are just better. Porsche's stability management can be used. In sport mode, it offers limited intervention, and for enthusiasts, can be switched off entirely. In conclusion, let's go back to Autogefühl. They noted the Porsche's size, it's not a tiddler, and the choice of interiors as well.
Yes, EVs are locally emission-free. Of course, the energy has to come from somewhere, and there are also other raw materials involved in production. There are different studies which is like more sustainable now. It depends on the long run. We are pretty certain that everything will be electrified. It's just a question like, how exactly it will be electrified. But that's definitely a step in the right direction, technology-wise, and it's supposed to be quite efficient. Of course, in the driving review, we will find out if that's true. Exterior-wise, it looks pretty sleek, although it's not a small vehicle. It looks way, way smaller than the Panamera, just, when seeing it live here in person, although it's just slightly shorter. So I think design-wise, a very interesting job. You still have some decent interior space, yes. Of course, the package overall is not good. You don't have too much luggage capacity, and the rear is usable for tall adults, yes, but it won't win the prize for the most practical car. Yes, it's more supposed to be a sports car, and as I said earlier, from the interior feeling, something between a Panamera and a 911, at least to me. That's, how to describe it, I think, in the easiest way. Interior also pretty cool that they offer a vegan interior, so because it really fits when you build an electric vehicle that's supposed to be more sustainable, then you also have to be sustainable on the interior. That just makes sense. And of course, it also has practical advantages, like staying cooler in summer and also warmer in winter when you sit on those race tech seats. So would look forward to test this version also very soon and present it to you.
Now, some extras about ownership of the car, but not necessarily about the car itself. Motor1.com says during the first 3 years of ownership, owners will get free charging at Electrify America stations for the first 30 minutes. Taycan drivers can use Porsche's charging service, and the app is the real star. Working alongside the sat-nav system inside the car, Porsche's planner does a few key things. It looks at the route that you've planned. It does the shortest route, but also the fastest route. Now, the fastest route might mean that if the battery is going to be a little bit low, anything 13% or less on arrival, it will add some charge stops along the way, reorienting the route based on the quickest way to do it, not necessarily the shortest way. So if there is a 50 kilowatt charger on your route, but there's a 350 kilowatt charger on a 10-minute diversion, but that means that you get to just plug in for 10 minutes and get back on the road, it'll take you to the faster charger. Charge Planner from Porsche takes into account what you want to charge when you're doing the journey. And when it's settled, the system, yes, it does battery preconditioning like the Teslas do. The Porsche magic number is 68 degrees Fahrenheit. That temperature will allow the fastest of fast charges. With a route engaged, the journey timeline shows when and where to stop and how long to plug in for before stopping and moving on to get to your destination as quick as possible. Clever algorithms at work from the Porsche engineers. Now, we've talked about the Taycan. Let's look at the competition with Bloomberg, who say despite all the engineering muscle, VW is struggling to slow the march of Tesla. The debut of the e-tron, a challenger to the Model X, was marred by delays and a recall, and Elon Musk stretched down market with the Model 3, which has been selling very well in Europe this year and now China. The technologically refined car goes head-to-head, they say, the Porsche Taycan with the Model S, which is aging. After Mercedes-Benz, Jaguar and Audi went with SUVs for their first ones, Porsche went with a sports car. Tesla is facing concerns, say Bloomberg, over sustainable profits amid waning demand. Well, yes, the S and the X are down a bit, but the Model 3 is on the rise. Well, thank you very much for listening today. I hope you enjoyed a special edition of the podcast, the Taycan, a car that I'm sure I will never get to own, but for those that can afford it, you're going to have a great time and a great car. And actually, in conclusion, if you want my thoughts, I don't know if anybody does care, but I'll just give you a quick 30 seconds on my impression of this. This car is complementary to the EV market. Now, you will see lazy journalists comparing it to Tesla because that's the nearest that there is to it. And because Tesla is an EV and the Porsche Taycan is an EV. But ignore those articles. The Model S and the Taycan are not the same car. You'll see Tesla fans as well online going, oh, well, I think you'll find the Model S P100DL, or long range as we call it these days, will do 0 to 60 quicker. None of it matters. Yeah, the Tesla goes 0 to 60 quicker. Yes, the long range version will go further. Yes, Tesla fans will always, there's a tiny fanatical core that will create arguments online. This Taycan is a spectacular car, an amazing first effort from Porsche, a truly luxury car, and yes, it is goddamn expensive. However, it's a great EV, and it will be a halo for the world of EVs, and for that, I'm very grateful. Thank you, Porsche, for making a fine electric vehicle. Let's get on to our question of the week this week. What's your favourite EV experience? I'd love you to tell me. Maybe you've had a great EV experience. Well, share it with me and I'll share it with the listeners. What's your favourite EV experience? Or, if you've not had one, an experience you'd like to have, email me, hello@evnewsdaily.com. Leave a comment on Facebook and YouTube. There are 245 patrons of the show, and your generosity gets to keep this programme going. Our premium partners are Phil Roberts of Electric Future, Brad Crosby and Avid Technology. Ask Avid's appearance will be on Saturday's show, where we will answer your technical questions. If you would like to know more about the world of EVs, hashtag AskAvid on Twitter and on email. There are 568 odd previous episodes. I've lost the number we're up to. The archive is online for free. The new shows you get first and free and automatically by hitting subscribe on your podcast app. Say hi on the socials by searching EV News Daily. Have a wonderful day. I'll catch you tomorrow. And remember, there is no such thing as a self-charging hybrid.